Welcome to our docuseries Boys to Men, where we interview interesting men about the lives they've led. Today, our guest is Mr. Gregory Joseph, bringing life through graphic design. Good morning, Mr. Joseph.
Good morning, Zan. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And you?
Doing fantastic.
So, Mr. Joseph, what is your full name?
Gregory Malcolm Joseph.
Okay. So, did you have any nicknames?
Yeah, pretty much I have two nicknames right through my adult life. Most people around most places know me G.I. Joe. Most people in St. Lucia might know me as Bumblebee. G.I. Joe was a name that I got pretty much because I grew up playing with G.I. Joe toys. And then when I traveled, I took one with me. And a friend of mine, when visiting me in my room, saw one of them, was like, G.I. Joe, does that stand for your name, Gregory Joseph? And I'm like, it does now. And Bumblebee is when I came to St. Lucia, I had a motorcycle that was painted like a bumblebee, was black and yellow, and that's how I got that nickname.
Oh, that's
not the Transformer.
So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Trinidad.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your family life?
Well, I am the only child of a single parent household. I grew up with my mom. I have a lot of cousins. We used to spend a lot of time with extended family.
Okay.
So as far as I knew, we always had a lot of family around, a lot of friends around. My mom was a teacher, so she always encouraged any sort of group activities with friends. So it was always, fun times with large numbers of people.
Yes. So what was your boyhood like?
My boyhood it was fun. It was always something to do. I don't recall having boredom as part of my vocabulary growing up. When I was growing up, we were always doing something or made to do something. We weren't allowed to be bored, if you can say that. It was always go outside or do your homework or go clean this or go move that or go back outside.
So what type of boy would you describe yourself as?
I was, I guess everybody's the good guy in their story. So I guess saying I was a good boy would not really be a good way of putting it. I was a very curious boy. I used to like to find out things. I would disappear just because I couldn't figure out where something went. And I guess that would be a bit not good because I wouldn't tell people. So there was one story I remember. One Christmas, the family went on a cruise ship, and as soon as we boarded, I am told I disappeared and showed up half an hour later at our actual room cabin with captain and security and parents and frantic family wondering what had happened and how could a little boy disappear on a big ship. And as far as I was concerned, I was just discovering the ship. But apparently that's not a good way to do it. And there's many stories of me doing that.
So your curiosity made you adventurous?
Definitely. To a certain extent, I used to claim to be fearless, but I realized that now, as an adult, that was actually called foolhardy, not fearless. And yes, but it gave me a spirit of adventure. It gave me a wonderful ability to do things. Now I call them calculated risks, but a lot of times people would just say it was dumb. But yeah, being curious helped me to do things that most people might have questioned first and not experienced.
Yeah.
So curiosity helps you to experience things, and wisdom comes along with experience. So I'm glad that I was curious and not fearful.
Yes. So, did you have a hero or someone you looked up to?
Definitely looked up to my grandfather. He was the father figure in my life growing up. He was a real estate person. I didn't know really what that meant back then, but he was also a fisherman. He was the leader, one of the founding leaders of the Scouting Association in Trinidad. He was a very avid traveler, but him and my grandmother both avid travelers. So there was always a sense of something to do with him, and there was always a protocol around him because grandparents back in that time were uh, they had higher standards for us, I think, than we do now. But he was definitely a role model, somebody that I thought I wanted to impress or at least get their approval. And he was a gentleman, so he never made that feel like it was out of reach. He never felt like you could not, it was not something I was afraid to do, it was something I aspired to do.
Okay. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Uh, when I was in primary school, I knew I wanted to be a marine biologist or a graphic designer. Now, I didn't know what a graphic designer was. I knew I wanted to do the job that made the pictures in the magazines
Okay.
or be a marine biologist.
So do you have a story behind why you wanted to be these two things or two jobs? Or why
Yeah,
you wanted to do these two jobs?
um, I love the ocean and I love being in water. I love being on water. As I said, my grandfather, the fisherman, he took us out as often as our parents would allow us to go out,
Yes.
my cousins and I, that is. Um, and, there was a fascination with being in the water and being in a different world. And marine
Yes.
biology was one way that you could do it and make money and, enjoy it. But I was also fascinated with the pictures in things that were printed.
Yes.
So as much as I read a lot, I also like to look at the images in books and in magazines. And I just thought, this is so creative to be able to make pictures and then distribute it to people you never met. And that fascination, coupled with the fact that I liked to paint and draw when I was young, I think that sort of gave me an idea that I wanted to do that.
What was school life like for you?
School was interesting. My mother was the teacher at my primary school. So I thought I had a lot of freedom and exemptions in a lot of things that I did. But in reality, I heard go to your mother a lot. But going into secondary school, I was always one of the smaller boys. I could remember me and three of us, two other classmates, always being the smallest boys in secondary school. And with a curious, adventurous spirit, that used to mean getting in trouble and not backing down a lot. So secondary school was, I would say, fun. It was a lot. We did a lot. Like our curriculum in my schools, both primary and secondary, was very, very diverse. It was not just academic. So school forced us to do a lot of stuff in life and as we were growing.
What secondary school did you attend?
I went to Queen's Royal College in Trinidad.
So, did you have a favorite subject?
Yeah, it was always art. And ironically, I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself a practitioner of art. Um, but I've always loved art. I've done art from primary school right through my entire education.
So, since your favorite subject is art, am I right to assume that your favorite teacher was the art teacher?
Nope.
So,
Never
so who
assume.
was your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher in high school was Mrs. Bizram, my English literature teacher. She was a fantastic tour de force in my secondary school education. Um, there are not enough compliments to talk about this woman and the effect that she had, not just in the classroom, but in terms of guidance throughout my high school career.
Yes.
Definitely a standout person.
Were you in any school clubs?
Yes, I was in the Sea Scouts. I was on the swim team, and I was on the school band, both stage band and orchestra. Sea Scouts is definitely, I think, the most influential um, extracurricular activity that's been in my life. That tied in with an already growing love for all things marine, becoming
Yes.
adept at living. Scouting on the whole, I think, gives you a bunch of lessons and skills early in life that you don't realize are actually tangible skills later on in life. But I think having an extracurricular activity in the first place does allow you balance, that you realize that life is much more than what is taught in a classroom for a few hours.
Yes. Yes. So during your time, if there's a pandemic like this one, how do you think you and your friends would cope with their social life and school life?
Well, for one thing, there would be no such thing as remote learning. I mean, back in the 80s, when I was in the 80s and yeah, 80s, 90s, when I was in school, the internet was not really that, it was for military and high academics. It wasn't really a computer in every house type of situation. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how the learning would have gone for academics, but I'm pretty certain we would have had um, a lot of social adjustments to be able to not be able to be outside or to be together or to just get up and go with who you wanted, where you wanted, when you wanted. Um, but at the same time, we had, I think, less less people doing more things. So I do believe that we would have been quicker to adapt to it because we didn't have the vast majority of options that we do nowadays,
Yes.
So, we would have just had to deal with it. And I think we were a bit more disciplined in our approach to treating each other just because we did not know and have as many options for treating each other as we do now via the internet. Yes, I'm blaming the internet.
So what subjects did you choose for CXC to pursue graphic design?
Okay. Well, since I was not allowed to do science, I definitely was doing art. Um, I was lucky that from our primary school, we were introduced to computer science and technology. So that was just a natural addition as well. Computer and art had to go hand in hand to do it. But I also did business, accounts, economics. Um, what else did I do? Technical drawing. Um, and I think I did literature as well. It was a kind of diverse group of subjects, but definitely art and computer technology. And that was from CXC and A levels.
So, what did you receive formal training in graphic design and art?
Yep. Like I said, from primary school, we had computers in our curriculum, and there was a particular program in one of them called Turtle Draw, and that was sort of the introduction I had to graphic design on a computer, because you had to understand mapping through math to be able to direct the actual turtle on a screen to draw designs.
Yeah.
But then fast forward, combining the fundamentals of actual fine arts with the fundamentals of computer aided design, I did that through primary school, secondary school, and university. So I went to university to get my degree in advertising with a minor in graphic design. So I actually was being educated to do this my entire school life.
What inspired you to become a graphic artist?
Pictures in magazines.
Very interesting inspiration.
Yeah, it's not that deep.
So, okay, what was your first job as a graphic artist?
Okay. When I was in before I went to university, I was doing a course in printing technician and in graphic design as well. And one of the requirements of that course was to work in an environment in that same field. So I went to work at a printery, and while I was also being a junior press operator, that is literally working the press that prints stuff, I was conscripted to be the in-house graphic designer. So any stuff that we were printing, I would actually have to draw out some designs to be added to the artwork. So for instance, we used to print a lot of calendars for little stores, and they would send pictures, and obviously a calendar needs months and dates.
Yeah.
But then sometimes they need some little embellishments on it, or sometimes they needed certain things traced to look a different way. That was my actual first job professionally doing graphic design.
So, looking back now, how do you, sorry, looking back now, how do you think you have improved since then?
The technology has improved. And unfortunately, I don't draw as much as I used to. Because although I might sketch out an idea, I never actually have to refine my sketches. I use the computer to do that. And I rarely ever actually have to use my original drawings to do any artwork. Right now, as my graphic design is strictly for advertising, I hardly do any actual personal creative work. And I think I just outgrew it at a certain point in time. But in terms of how I've seen myself improve, I've gotten better at the craft of art. I think turning the knowledge that I have into something faster, smoother, and understanding what my clients want better.
What is most challenging about your job?
My job requires me to stay relevant, because there are millions of graphic artists all over the world, all vying for the same amount of clients. And
Yes.
with the internet, a graphic designer in Siberia could get MNC Home Depot as a client. So staying relevant, continuing to build good relationships with your clients and your suppliers, making sure that your name is called when certain work comes up. That's the real challenge, because the information and the availability of anybody, anywhere is always going to be, your competition. So, yeah.
Okay.
Who's that? Jaden, you're gonna cut all this out, right?
What is your favorite job or creation so far?
I don't think I have one. Because in my mind, it's not my work, it's my client's work. So I'm not really attached to it.
What advice would you have for young people like me that would like to pursue graphic design?
Ah. Find what you like to do in that field and do that thing really well before you try to do everything else. Because if you do one thing really well, you'll be remembered for that thing. But if you do everything mediocre, you'll not be remembered at all. So if it is that you can really sketch portraits really well, make sure that that skill is, at the top of the screen. And that you don't really dilute that skill by trying to do all the other things that you see people are offering you to do. Because what a lot of people try to do when they hire graphic artists is to get them to do a bunch of things. But the real way is to have a bunch of people who do different things working together for one thing. So for you, I would say find the thing that excites you and that you can develop and you won't become frustrated with, and do that thing really well.
Okay. Do you have any other interests?
I do. I am very interested in motorcycles. I love being in water, in, under, above water, whether that be diving or surfing or swimming or literally just staying in water. I love my dogs and training them, and quite a few passions that, I try to stay diverse. Diversity is variety is the key of that. Is this key to the spice of. There's a quote out there that somebody said about variety in life and it being spicy. That's what I'm going to go with.
So, in your opinion, what is your greatest achievement?
I think there is no great achievement in my course of life. What I think is there's a lot of little ones, and that I am really excited to celebrate every little one. And at the point in time that it happens, it seems like the greatest thing in the world. And then the next little thing happens, and then that's the greatest thing in the world. Because for a long time, I didn't think that little things were worth celebrating or were worth being called achievements. But recently, in the last few years, I've come to learn that basically everything is an achievement and is worth notice and celebration. And so I think my greatest achievement is understanding that life needs to be celebrated while it's happening. That's a realization, not an achievement. I'm really poor at answering that question.
If you had to change one thing about your life, what would it be?
Here's a chance for me to stand on a pulpit and give you some unsolicited advice. If you can change anything and it needed to be changed, do it. Because we're in control of our lives despite the fact that things are happening to us. And if you decide that something needs to be changed in your life, don't wish for it, make that change.
Or lessons. What are some pitfalls or lessons you've learned as a man that you think that I can avoid whilst I'm growing up?
That's interesting. I hear two questions in there, and I'm going to go with the second one first. I don't think you should avoid pitfalls in life. Those are where you learn the lessons. What I think I have learned in terms of pitfalls is not appreciating good friendships and good family, good relationships, and allowing relationships to fall apart, thinking that I can do things on my own.
Yes.
That was a very difficult lesson to learn. But I think if you have good friends, if you have a good family, because you get to choose these things, make sure that you invest in them and hang on to good relationships. But don't avoid hard lessons. You have to go through pitfalls in order to understand how the road works.
Yes. As you navigated through life, what was your greatest motivation?
In the early part of my life, having a good time, having fun, getting through the day and making it to tomorrow was all it mattered, really. That's the curious, mindless, adventurous side of me. I always just figured we can do this and it'll be okay. And, the motivation was just to have a good, fun time, to do something new, and we'll figure it out when it happens. But as I grew, I started to come into my faith, which is Christianity, and understanding that we don't do things and hope for something in the future. We've been given a great gift, and our motivation should be honoring that gift that we've been given. So rather than trying to earn a reward or to try to make favor or to make amends for something, I think if we look at life in the perspective that we've been given a beautiful gift, we live in a way that honors that gift, doesn't take advantage of it. So my motivation is to bring honor to the gift of grace that we've been given. That's my faith.
What would you like your legacy to be? Oh, what would you like to be remembered as?
Um, I think I'd just like to be remembered, to not fade into obscurity,
Yes.
because I think in living a truly well-rounded life, if there's only one thing, that thing had to be extremely monumental to a great multitude of people. But if you don't have that big one thing, I think you could be monumental change to a lot of people, and that being everybody that you meet. And I would hope that everybody that I've met remembers me.
Okay. I surely will remember you.
I'm honored.
So, what advice would you have for me?
Ah, don't be afraid, because as bad as things may seem, and even though things don't always turn out okay, people always tell you be patient, things will work out, and sometimes they don't. But don't be afraid. Don't let the fear of the future hinder you from being here and now.
Well, we have reached the end of the interview.
You've been fantastic.
Yes. So, thank you, Mr. Joseph, for this very interesting interview. I really liked it.